Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to do something really fascinating. We're taking a highly charged, wide-ranging political interview, and we're going to neutrally deconstruct it piece by piece. Our source material today, a recent live interview with One Nation leader Pauline Hanson, which took place right against the backdrop of the Furor by-election. By really breaking down her exact words, we're going to look under the hood and understand the underlying mechanics of populist political messaging. We'll see exactly how a platform is constructed, addressing literally everything from a street corner argument to massive international geopolitics, all in a matter of minutes. It's going to be super interesting, so let's get into it. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're covering 4 main points. 1. The Furor by-election tensions. 2. The water issue pivot. 3. Eyeing the lower house. And finally, 4. The ISIS brides controversy. As you'll see, we are going to trace the narrative arc here from very local, grassroots grievances all the way to macro national security fears.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Furor by-election tensions. We're starting right at ground level with grassroots grievances and campaign scuffles.
So, the interview kicks off right in the thick of it, addressing a physical altercation over campaign signs between a One Nation volunteer and Liberal Senator James Paterson. Now, initially, when Hanson and her team heard there was an altercation involving blood, they actually called Senator Paterson to apologize. But by the time she sits down for this interview, her reaction has totally revised. Hanson now claims that after seeing a full video clip, she genuinely believes Paterson was secretly filming and intentionally goading her volunteer with false claims. And that revised reaction leads directly into this quote, "I'm sick of the dirty politics, the gutter politics that's happening." Hanson uses this specific, hyper-local scuffle to build a much larger argument. She's framing this chaotic local incident as direct evidence of an establishment campaign against the everyday people she claims to represent. She's basically arguing her party is the victim of dirty games, orchestrated by major parties who are absolutely terrified of losing votes.
Moving right along to Section 2, the water issue pivot, where we look at how she defends candidate allegiances.
Okay, so the interviewer presses Hanson on her local candidate, David Farley. Specifically, there's an accusation that he previously sought pre-selection for the Labour Party. Well, Hanson does this really fascinating pivot here. She establishes a core grievance, massive frustration over the Murray-Darling Basin water management. She acknowledges, her candidate approached the Labour Party and independents, but she frames it entirely as a search for solutions. She explicitly notes he never actually held a membership card. Ultimately, she says he aligned with One Nation because of their strong stance on the water issue. She completely strips away the political ideology and makes it 100% about who is going to fix the water.
Now, you might be wondering, why does his local defense actually matter on a broader scale? Well, Hanson argues that, just like her candidate, people have changed. This highlights the intense battle happening for regional voters. Their deep local frustrations, like water management in agricultural areas, are completely overriding traditional party loyalties. She's signaling to the viewer that past political allegiances just don't matter anymore when the immediate material needs of the community are being ignored by the major players.
All right, Section 3, Eyeing the Lower House. Let's look at internal party politics and some big ambitions. The interviewer asks a really interesting question here. Might a strong local showing tempt her to move from the Senate to the lower house? Hanson impartially just lays out the facts. It's under consideration. While she acknowledges that a lot of people depend on her presence in the Senate to act as opposition, she has firmly not ruled out a run for a lower house seat. She notes that the decision is still pending, mostly because they are still 2 years out from an election. She's keeping her cards close to her chest, but the door is definitely open. Then, Hanson floats this strategic vision directly to her base. Can you imagine Barnaby and I in the lower house? Wouldn't we be a force to be reckoned with? Talk about planting a seed. By name-dropping prominent National Party figure Barnaby Joyce, she is suggesting the potential for a powerful, unified bloc in the lower house, a bloc that could, theoretically, hold the balance of power. It's a very calculated rhetorical move. And now for Section 4, the ISIS brides controversy. Buckle up, because we are pivoting straight to macro national security fears. Hold on, because this is where the interview takes a massive turn. News broke overnight that ISIS brides had returned to Australia and immediately faced arrest and charges. Hanson's reaction to this is incredibly stark and immediate. She states flatly that she is disgusted with the whole situation. Her stance here is completely uncompromising. She argues that these women, and critically, even their children, should have been left overseas and absolutely not allowed back into the country under any circumstances.
To bolster this really hardline stance, she grounds her ideological argument in a very specific economic claim: $2 million. She asserts right there on air that it's going to cost taxpayers $2 million a year just to provide security monitoring over these repatriated individuals. Now, whether that specific figure is fully verified or not, the rhetorical purpose is highly effective. It puts a massive, tangible price tag directly onto a national security fear.
And from that price tag, Hanson builds an incredibly powerful juxtaposition. She directly contrasts everyday Australians, specifically pointing out homeless citizens and veterans needing care, against the resources being spent on returning ISIS brides and their children. She's essentially forcing the viewer to weigh domestic welfare concerns against international repatriation. It creates an economic narrative that makes her hardline stance feel like simple, common-sense protection of vulnerable locals.
When the interviewer presses her about de-radicalization, the formal programs aimed at helping individuals abandon extremist views, she just shuts it down. She firmly rejects the entire concept. She states she has none whatsoever faith in these programs, particularly regarding the returning children. She asserts that these kids have been thoroughly brainwashed overseas, taught hatred towards the West, and are, in her words, fundamentally incompatible with Australian society.
To summarize this macro threat, she points outward to specific Western nations. She lists England, Canada, Germany, and France, claiming these countries have been taken over by radical ideology because they allowed infiltration. Her argument serves as a stark warning. She's claiming the current government is acting foolishly, allowing radicals to have a win by repatriating these families and setting Australia up to be corrupted in the exact same way.
So, what does this all mean? That brings us to the end of our analysis, and I want to leave you with this structural question to ponder. How do local grievances and national fears shape the future of our political landscape? Just think about the journey we just took through this single interview. We started with a literal street-level scuffle over a piece of cardboard campaign signage. We pivoted through the economic realities of farming water, and we ended up with a sweeping condemnation of global terrorism and Western collapse. It really shows how seamlessly a political platform can weave the micro and the macro together to capture voter attention. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the structure behind the statements, and I'll catch you next time.